Okay, hello. I think give people a chance to come in, but I'll welcome everybody to today's webinar, FuturePrint and Agfa. Thanks so much for everybody joining to talk about digital print for textile. Next generation digital printing is what we're talking about. So with me today is Ellen Bertels, Senior Project Manager, Inkjet Ink Development at Agfa. Hello, Ellen.
Hey, good afternoon.
And of course, we have Mike Horsten, Worldwide Segment Manager for Textiles at Agfa. So welcome, Mike.
Good morning, Karis.
And yeah, so I think we're going to have a discussion about some of the exciting things that the Agfa are doing in the digital textile space. I think, you know, we'd like to talk about that and also some of the, you know, the trends and the overall landscape there. But I think if we just, a good place to start would be maybe, I think, Mike, you were going to pop on over to the Agfa showroom. I think you had something to show us in terms of the Vinci model and some textile applications as well.
Sure. I mean, I think it's a good idea just to jump in and you know, give the people watching the webinar good morning, good afternoon, good evening to anybody watching. And jump in and give a little bit of an idea where this webinar and the direction of this webinar is going. So let me share my screen and let me pop up a little video for you guys and see what you guys think. Let me jump into the showroom, guys. I'm gone.
Yeah, Fraser, now I'm in the showroom at Agfa. I just wanted to show you these really nice products in textile. One of them is the Vinci CX3200. They give you excellent results and really, really nice pictures. Coming to the reality of printing textiles is a lot of people don't know what dye sub is. Now, dye sub is dye sublimation. It's basically going from a gas and entering the pores of the textiles when you heat it. So normally, textiles are made into very, very unfashionable things. They put all kinds of chemicals in. You have to wash it. You have to steam it. With dye sublimation, you don't need it. It's the most ecological way to print textiles. Just imagine, textiles is not only something for fashion, but it's also for soft signage, for stores, retail. Think about a backplate. It's always so difficult to make. Well, guys, not with Agfa. Sometimes you wonder why these printers are so big. Oh, sometimes I wonder why those printers are so big. But when you have a store and you want to do big buildings and you want to do some big advertising, the Agfa CX3200 gives you that opportunity. Not only to print directly on textiles, but also on paper. That is really something else. But let's talk about that a little bit more, about what is fashion, what is soft sign, what is textiles for Agfa. Fraser, back to you.
Okay, great. And so no Fraser today. I have to put up with
I know. I'm sorry about that one.
we look similar, maybe, but
no, it was. I have to be honest. It was recorded before the last one when I got ill. As you probably all noticed, that we had to reschedule this webinar, and I apologize. But I came back from a trade show, and for some reason, some bugs came with me on a personal note, so that wasn't that very pleasant.
Yeah, well.
But we survived.
It worked out because now I get to do it. So that was great. Thank you so much, Mike, and for getting there and back so quickly to the showroom. That was great to see. And I just want to, before we go any further, just if anybody's got any questions that perhaps we can get to, you know, throughout the course of our chat or get to at the end, please do put them in the Q&A section. That would be great. So before we talk about the equipment that we saw there and the applications, maybe start with just asking why dye sub. What is Agfa's, you know, what are you bringing to the dye sublimation space? Why getting into that space?
Well, let me start there. I think what Agfa is, of course, known for, you know, having a lot of print and color technology for over 150 years, and we have been into the textile market in and out, to be very honest, mostly during you know, acquisitions that Agfa did in the past, and basically because of that didn't have the knowledge or didn't have the technologies to keep on pursuing that business. Today we looked at it Agfa as a very different thing, and Ellen will explain a little bit more about why we developed a certain type of ink. Is we looked at where the problems are. I mean, one of the things in textile and in printing in general is you keep on evolving products. They become faster, they become better, they become quality. You know, we're all evolving, but we never think why we evolve, and we never think why we should evolve. Now in dye sublimation started somewhere in the 50s, 1950s, by the way, and has evolved from plates to silkscreen to offsets to digital technology in the beginning of the century, and we've been continuing to move into that direction. Soft signage, what you were talking about, is something from the last couple of years. I think for the last 15 years, if you look at the whole technology. But fashion, I mean, people have been wearing clothes, doing block printing, putting stuff into, we all made our t-shirts in the old days. You put a knot in it, you put it into a cooking bath with beetroot, and you had a nice t-shirt. Very fashionable again. But the reality is that the technology has moved, but we are coming to the constraints of dye sublimation, and dye sublimation has this awkward thing. It's a water-based ink, and like I said, Ellen will explain about the inks, but we need to make some drastic changes in thinking how to go to the future. If the speeds are going faster, you have drying problems. If the speeds are going faster, how do I put more ink on the paper when the technology doesn't allow me today to put that amount of ink on because of the head technology? Now it's easy to add heads. I mean, there's machines out there with 100, 200. I mean, we have an onset, I think it's 292 or 392 heads, but adding heads adds costs. And in the textile business, the margin is small. So every penny counts. And if you're going to thinner paper, you're going to make it more difficult for yourself, et cetera, et cetera. So with that all in mind, we looked at, as Agfa, to say, okay, if we make a machine like we have the Avinci, which is a soft sign machine, which is our first machine in that market space, which is a machine that is specifically made for high-end quality but speedy production. 270 square meters maximum speed, 190 square meters of really absolute fantastic quality. We needed to do some things to our inks to make that happen. So basically, it's Ellen's magic.
Absolutely, and Ellen, it'd be great if you could jump in on that in terms of as Mike was saying. Then solving those problems. There are those challenges. Let's talk about the inks that you've developed, and what is important to consider when formulating those inks with dye sublimation printing in mind.
Yeah, I think Mike already touched briefly the most important thing. So Agfa has 150 years of color in its DNA, which is very important. We make dispersions for a very long time. And if you look at the dye sub ink, also there a dispersion is the heart of the ink. If the quality there is good, you can do a lot. So what we did is we applied the knowledge we had. Of course, we combined it with traditional textile knowledge, but we added something extra. And in that way, we were able to put a very high colorant load in the inks, and we were able to keep the ink very pure. On one side, we could keep it healthy. We didn't have to add what we then call CMRs, so carcinogenic, mutagenic, or reprotoxic chemicals. But by adding this type of dispersions, or our own dispersions, we are also able to have pure colors, which means for direct print, we have a very broad gamut. We could obtain a very high transfer efficiency, which is of course also nice to have. And we have to apply less ink, meaning we have faster drying, we have way less set off, also meaning we don't have to transport water around the globe, which is of course regarding sustainability a very nice advantage. So these are a bit the key points that we had during our ink development.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, sustainability is definitely something that we'll come on to in the discussion, because it's such a key topic. So I think, but before we go on to other topics, I think it's important to look at perhaps and both of you to jump in on this, what you might say to people who are looking at the price points of inks that that they're using and thinking, well, you know, this supplier is more affordable compared with Agfa's offering. You know, what would be your response to that concern, which is a valid concern for businesses?
Absolutely. You know, outside of the oh guys, I lost my shoulder. There it is. It's back. I get amputated in the webinar. No, the reality is that it really makes a big difference when you are looking at equipment and ink in combination. A lot of the manufacturers of ink make a generic ink that will fit a generic band of printers. But when you have some specifics, you need a waveform specifically for that ink on that machine. That means how the jet or how the drop is jetted out of the head. And you can do that with a multiple of technologies that are available. Now, doing that correctly is really a mix and match. It is not like I'm going to buy some ink cheap somewhere and I'm going to buy printers cheap. I'm going to put them together. It's going to work. Yeah, it will work. Honestly, it will work. Will it be working good? Will it give you the quality? Will it give you the speed? Will it give you any issues? Will it give you all kinds of artifacts, etc.? Probably yes. But if you mix and match it, you will avoid all those problems, and that way you get high speed, very high quality. When you're talking ink, it is always my biggest surprise when I'm on a trade show. Just to give you an example, Karis, I have multiple people that will come up to me and say, "How much is the cost of ink?" And I'm like, yeah, but that's the wrong question. The question is, how much does a square meter or a square foot of print cost? Because it's non-relevant if the ink is 1,000 euros, but you only use a milligram of ink to get the same result as somebody else that you need to put a liter on. The comparison needs to be apples to apples, and this is where the high ink load that Agfa's Avinci inks have, and that gives you these benefits. I need less ink, and I'm talking significantly less ink than the competition. I have less energy needs to dry because I need to dissipate less water. If I dissipate less water, I don't need the energy. I can go better, like Ellen said, there's less set off. Set off is basically, for the people that don't know, is when you're printing and the next layer comes on top and there is ink still wet and it's putting it on the back side. So when you go to the calendar, you're going to get all kinds of misting and problems. These are things. Oh, and talking about misting, which is something very common in the DISOP world, which basically means the ink doesn't stick and adhere correctly to the media and it kind of floats around, and yeah, you suck it out with ventilators and stuff like that. But it also dirties the machine. So all these things in combination is where, when you buy from a reputable partner that has reputable ink, you know that you're going to get something which is going to work, and you have the service to back it. You have the thing. Is it going to be cheaper? No, it's not. In initial, that's the fun part, in initial, because on the long term, it will be cheaper because you will have a partner that's going to work with you. It's going to be a machine that is going to be serviced. It's a machine that can be checked remotely, etc., etc. Where if you buy a machine from a certain part of the world, it's a gamble, serious gamble. Do I still have parts next month? Can I get something? And if I get something, is that the same thing that the supplier put in the machine? Yes or no? We want to avoid that. And again, there's a lot of reputable companies out there that have great service and have great products, and some days don't have our great ink. But outside of that, there's also a lot of people out there that are making products that are disposable products. And these days of sustainability and circular organizational wise, I think it's wrong when you buy a printer, that in 3 months from now you're going to trash it because it doesn't work anymore. It's not our vision. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Ellen, can you weigh in on that topic in terms of the price point of the inks, and as Mike was saying, so important to you know, it's almost a false economy not to have that trusted partner that you can go to and you know, support you every step of the way.
Yeah, well, indeed, I think it's not just the total cost of ownership due to the lower ink loads, for example, but it's also the fact your engine, the uptime will be very high, yeah, to my opinion, because we do have the ink, and a trustworthy ink supplier can work on the ink, but he doesn't have the equipment the ink will fit in. We also have the equipment, meaning we can turn both the knobs of the ink and the knobs of the engine. So the end product will be perfectly tuned. One part will fit the other one and vice versa. So I think this is also where there's big advantage of the end customer, or for the end customer. Yeah,
absolutely. And just going back to what we touched on a few minutes ago on the sustainability side, I would like to talk a little bit about the Ecotex Eco Passport on those Avinci inks. Can you explain what this is, how you earn that certification, and why it's important?
Yeah, no problem. So for those who don't know it, Ecotex and the Eco Passport that goes with it is an external certification system. The Eco Passport is a certificate that you get or can get for your inks, indicating there are no harmful substances there, not for the environment, but also not for human beings, meaning it's okay for the printer operator, which is very important to our customers, but also for the end customer, the product will be okay. We started the development of the Avinci 110 inks with this certificate in mind. So it's not that we developed something and then just had it tested. We took it into account from the very, very first start. So as I already said, it means that it's safe for printer operators, for an end customer also in theory. Why do I say in theory? Because the end product still have to be certified again by our customers. The Eco Passport is some kind of pre-certificate to get the Ecotex 100 label. And it's a label which you see a lot in everyday stores, the big stores. Maybe I shouldn't call the names. And it gives people trust. It proves that you can wear the textiles that you buy on your skin without having risk for skin irritation or reactions or anything else. So what's in it? Because our ink has a certificate, it will be easier for our customers and also cheaper to get this Ecotex Standard 100 certificate. So it's a two-step thing, I would say.
And Mike, you know, from your perspective, is that it seems inevitable that it would be something that customers and people you talk to are more interested in, something that's increasingly important. So, you know, as well as being, you know, really important, as Ellen was saying, from an environmental perspective, especially with any textiles that you're going to wear, it's also something that, you know, we kind of have to head in that direction, right, in terms of the inks that you're producing.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Ecotex in general, it is more fashion than soft sign, and the device we have today is a soft sign device. Why to get Ecotex Passport for a soft sign device? Something you need to think about, and I'll leave that to you. But the reality is, the inks, even in a store, you know, are susceptible to people walking around. It's something a little bit more than just only wearing it for clothing. I believe it needs to be sustainable for any environment where we put our products in. We are a responsible European company where we want to make sure that our customers and the customer's customer don't get sick from products that we make. You know, it's the worst thing that can happen to not only to us, but also to the person getting involved. One of the things that Ellen said, which is, I think, very important, is that a lot of manufacturers don't have Ecotex. They don't go through the certification. And the reason why is a lot of the inks have formaldehyde. They still have a very small content of this. And this content, formaldehyde, and you probably know this from Dr. Jekyll and Hyde, when he put things on water, on pressurized water, that is formaldehyde. So, and the Egyptians, I think, use it also to mummify people. So we want to try to avoid that. Don't mummify your customer. But the reality of getting the certificate is a big step for Agfa to make sure that our inks are certified. And we do that, by the way, also with our UV inks and for other platforms. We have everything, really nicely certified. I think we're one of the first companies that are working very hard to get all the CMRs out of our UV inks, which is an enormous task. But coming back to Ellen's department, I think we also need to realize that it's an enormous task to make inks, to come up with the technology and solutions. A lot of people kind of forget it's not mixing and matching ink. It is lab work. It is analytics. It is a lot of, we're talking 3-4 years to develop an ink. This is how long it takes. It's not like, I'm going to put some stuff together in my kitchen and voila. Another thing which I think is very important from our perspective, when you have an ink, it needs to be reliable. The reliability of ink is crucial. I mean, if I need to reprofile my printer every batch of ink that comes from a manufacturer, I'm not going to be happy, and my operator's not going to be happy, my customer's not going to be happy. One of the biggest problems with cheaper loaded inks, when you put a lot of water content in, is that you will not get the solids that you really need. For if you're doing sportswear, for example, I don't see flowers on shirts of sportswear. I see blocks of red, blue, green, fashionable colors. They need to be solid. The worst thing you want to see is you don't want to see banding and striping and missing nozzles and those kind of things. And talking about not missing nozzles, a good ink gives you that latency, as we call it in our industry, to make sure those heads are open, or the open head time that people talk about. Those are crucial in our testing, and they're crucial not because we want that, no, because we know the customer wants that. I mean, I have customers today in Europe, they have 7 printers of us printing 24/7. Trust me, if something goes wrong, they scream. We don't want screaming customers. We want happy customers buying more ink and buying new machines. That's the whole set of what we do in Agfa. And again, a lot of people kind of know Agfa from the photographic side from many years ago. But we have changed. We are in transformation, in the digital transformation. We are changing the vision of our company into much more solid direction of the future, where we want to go. If you look at our acquisitions, and I know this has nothing to do with textiles, but if you look at our acquisition of Speedset, which is the single pass, very high machine from Inca, and which we will not use for textiles, by the way. It's not a product that will be able to be working for that, but it is water-based. It is, again, doing new. And when we're talking water-based, and Ellen has been very proud not to tell about it, but we designed a brand new factory for these inks. We put a brand new factory in Bertels to make these water-based inks. I don't know that many manufacturers that are willing up front to set up a factory for something which we don't know if it's going to be successful. That is, I think, crucial. I know the inks are going to be successful. Our customers are, in Jubilee mode when they're printing, but the reality is we did invest before we even got it. So investing is something which is good. Investing is also something which I advise my customers when they buy a printer or when they buy a combination with a calendar. Don't save money because today you don't have it. Wait 3 months, buy the printer then, and get something good, because at the end of the day, it's going to save you a lot of money.
Absolutely. And I think that's a good opportunity. Before we kind of you touched on the vision there and what we're looking at from the future, and I think before we do that, maybe we could look a little bit at just an overview of a bit of background on recent developments, kind of key advancements that we've maybe seen in recent years in the dye sublimation textile space from your perspective. Maybe start with you, Mike, on that.
I think COVID made huge changes. What we used to do is offshore it, send it to Bangladesh, send it to Pakistan, send it far away, and get it made cheap, get it back. Once the supply chain routes were pretty much in disorder and dismay, we found that a lot of the customers were bringing back their production to nearshore countries, so more into Europe, truckable distances. Companies like Inditex went to Turkey, they went to Morocco, they went to Algeria. to do confection, to do local production. This is just one of the many. We also see a lot more local manufacturing. If you go to the Alp countries, so Switzerland, Austria, Hungary, a lot of the winter wear, so skis, snowboards, but also the jackets and everything are made locally now instead of far away. There is still a very big component that is still far away. It's the cheap stuff for Primark that is not being manufactured in the Netherlands. It's just too expensive, for example. But a lot of the fashion is more and more brought back into local areas in Europe. This is where we believe is the right way for sustainability. There's a big change. Another big change is the conglomerates, where everybody used to have one little printer, but they couldn't handle the big quantities. They could do two things: is one, buy a lot more printers, which is an option, or start working together. So get one guy that has big printers and use his empty space to produce for me. And we see that happening. So there's two sides of that medal. Sportswear companies having 7 or 8 printers going to one big printer, which is a logical replacement of their smaller devices, or saying, okay, throw the whole thing in the garbage, stop it, and I'm going to buy everything at Ellen. Ellen makes great quality, she delivers on time, blah 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 blah. It makes life a lot easier for me. That is the two trends that are happening. But I think the most important trend in the last couple of years, and especially because of COVID, is the nearshoring, getting it closer to us, less problems of transportation, supply chain problems, less problems of, I need to go there and check if it's okay. I mean, try go to China last 2 years. Your production was in China, and the only thing you could hope for that the stuff that you get in the container was really what you ordered, because there was no way to check it. In the old days, you would fly somebody out there to look at the production. China was closed. And we don't know if a COVID type thing will happen again. I mean, the recent developments in Turkey, as probably people are aware when they see this webinar, or even after this webinar, one of the major earthquake disasters in the last 50, 60 years. By the way, my condolences to all the people in Turkey, because it's a big textile country. We will see some supply chain disruptions just because of that event now. And how are you going to follow that? As a big leader of a brand, as a Hennes & Mauritz and the Zaras of the world, they need to start thinking about bringing it back home. And I think bringing back home can only work if you have good textiles, good materials, good inks, good printers, good service, good software, and put it all together. Now, Agfa has 4 of those components. We have the inks, we have the hardware, we have the service, and we have the software. So 4 of those components are in one house. So it's an easy blame. I did it. And I'm taking that responsibility for that market. And I think that's that's what people are waiting for. Karis, we've been having too many problems over the years and say, no, it's the software that didn't do it right. No, it's the ink that didn't do it right. No, it's this. Guys, here's the package. And we promise you it works. It's basically where it comes down to.
And
That's the way it should be.
just sort of staying on, just looking at COVID there, as you mentioned, that would have, from a soft signage perspective, would have been a considerable hit for that, in terms of, there's no events, there's no trade shows, all the kind of
it was disastrous.
So are we bouncing back from that now? Events are back, trade shows are back. In terms of that market, what are you seeing compared to the dip that we saw during COVID and where we are now?
Well, COVID made not only a dent, I think they made a hole into the market, a big black hole, because a lot of people just couldn't survive. When you are in the event business and you have no more events, you're dead. And retail, was dramatically diluted in their advertising budgets and their quantity of stuff they wanted to print. That today is back, but some people basically, left the market. This is this consolidation, what I was also talking about before, where you now see a lot of the printers being sold. We've been, when we started with the Vinci inks and we announced the first batch of Vinci inks for the US market, and we will launch the total set of ink probably around FESPA this year in Munich. But when we launched it in the US, it was quite interesting to see that a lot of the people that were in retail or were in signage are now buying printers again because they need to. And they didn't buy anything in the last 3 years. So the involvement and the evolution of the printers 3 years ago to now has dramatically changed. Not by everybody, but in general. And I think that gives us an opportunity. We have been very successful with our Vinci CX3200 into the market. It's been accepted extremely well in Europe. The amount of placements, surprised me tremendously. I had a certain number in my mind and we surpassed it, which is good. Does this mean that we're now the king of the market? No, we are the gorilla screaming on top of the mountain, but we need to also act. And the gorilla is sitting here, but in general, we need to act and we make sure that we do what we say and say what we do. I think those are the terms that Agfa is very strong in what we want to do. Would I would like to have something bad happening to the industry again? No, everybody needs to recoup. We need to get fat on the bones again. We need to make sure. One of the things I have noticed after COVID, Karis, is that margins, not by everybody, but in a big part, are rising again. So people are making a little bit more money than they used to. I think that is good because as there is a little bit of consolidation and some people dropped out of the market, people are now asking a little bit more for their product. And I think that is crucial when you are in this business, because again, it's not always an easy business. There's a lot of money to be made in textiles, but you need to do it right.
Absolutely. And Ellen, if I come to you on that again, looking at important events, important developments, in the last few years, of course, we've had COVID and those kind of challenges, but also in terms of what we might have seen in the development of the technology itself, machine speeds. I guess that impacts, how you develop the ink in terms of the ink you need to match those developments in digital. So maybe you could give up some insight on that side of things.
Okay, so I think COVID as such, if I look from an ink perspective, didn't change too much, but we see in recent years that there is this trend, also for UV ink, by the way, towards more safe and healthy inks. You cannot rank them, they're not this healthy, but also our competitors are trying to get less labels on their ink, make them more sustainable. From an Agfa perspective, I think we go one step further, because you can still make a label-free ink, but with some trace amounts of, I would say, nasty chemicals in there. We try to avoid them, especially in water-based. You can avoid them, so we should do. That's what we believe. Of course, what Mike was saying, the last years, there is always a trend towards faster engines, towards not especially by using more printheads, by just using better performing printheads. And of course, the ink has to follow. Because if you make an ink that is only jetting borderline, the customers won't be happy, because you'll get failings and you will see it in your end product, and you cannot guarantee quality. And that's, of course, something you don't want to do.
Yeah,
as a company.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so I think if we maybe go from that, looking at the maybe a bit towards the future rather than recent developments. From what we're seeing, it looks like the dye sub market is going to see some further growth, some strong growth. Just looking at the future of dye sublimation printing to 2027 from Smithers, it seemed to be that positive look. Looking at the machine that you showed us in the showroom, Mike, it's a soft signage machine. So are we seeing, before we talk, I don't want to push you too much on Agfa's future plans, but if we just look at soft signage in general, is it set to remain kind of the key market for wide format dye sub? Where are we with other areas like fashion and decor? If I go to you first, Mike.
Sure. Of course, then when we developed a new ink and we developed the DaVinci 3200, which is for soft sign, we had other technologies and other textile printing in mind. I cannot disclose what we will be doing, but it's a logical next step. Let's put it that way. When you talk decor, you can already do it at a 3.2 meter printer. You can do everything you want, basically, if you want to print curtains and those kind of things. That's all done, and with the Ecotex label, giving you that sustainability to go with it. So that's not a problem. One of the things we didn't touch on, and it is one of the things in the chat, by the way, and Richard asked this question, I might as well answer it, is can you print with these inks on this machine direct or on paper? I forgot. It's a logical thing, because normally you buy an ink that is for paper, or you buy an ink that is for textile. This ink is for both. It doesn't matter. Of course, it needs to be coated material. You cannot do an uncoated flag or anything like that. So I think that's important, but it really makes a difference. So again, depending on what you want to print on your backlets, for example, do you want to print a really black, big backlit with some white on it? My recommendation would be to print it on transfer paper and then transfer it. It will give you better results. It'll give you better sharpness. And especially if you have a lot of, white to black, conversion, and the paper transfer, it will give you a better result. When you have a big backlit, which is a guy standing on the mounting screaming out, a message, print it directly. It will be fantastic. It will look amazing, and it will save you some time. By the way, there is a misconception from a lot of people say, yeah, but I will save paper, and it's going to cost. No, the only thing is you save is some time, but it's minimal. Because if you print on paper and then you go put it in the calendar together with the textile, or if you take the textile and put it into the calendar directly, the textile is more expensive than the non-coated textile. So that evens it out. And the time consumption is the only thing. The difference is that you need to put both of them together in the calendar, which takes a little bit more time, a little bit more expertise, but that's it. So reality there, you can go both ways. Answering your question, Karis, at the same time, I think that where the direction of fashion will be going is more and more to the local demand. What kind of demand? And will it be the colorful dresses? No, I don't think that market is still not going to be, tomorrow here in Europe. Sportswear market, yes. If you look at local teams, you have the volleyball team and they have 10 sets of 15 shirts. Those sets, all 15 sets have to be different. There's a different name on it, there's a different number on it, etc. And that will be more and more. The problem in this is that it will be centralized more in the eastern countries of Europe for the simple reason of confection. It's not the printing. It's the manufacturing of that shirt. It's the sewing. It's the labor cost involved there. There's no sewing machines currently that I know of that will do, a full production of shirts fully automatically. And they're getting closer and closer, and we're working hard on it, but it's still pretty much prototyping. On the long term, yes. If you look at sewing for soft signage, for example, that has been fully automated these days. There's machines where you just put on the textile. You don't need to know anything about sewing. You only need to know to push that button. And once you push that button, it's going to go bang, put out, and it's going to put the silicon edge on. It's fantastic. So that market is done, but the fashion market is, of course, a little bit more complicated. On long term, fashion will come back for dye sub. And I'm saying fashion will come back for dye sub is a little bit different coming here. The cost of traditional reactive or asset-based ink printing is gone up tremendously because of the energy crisis and inflation. So the result is that when you print with reactive ink from a screen, a rotary screen onto the fabric, it is extremely cheap. it's cheap. It is very, very affordable. I don't like the word cheap. But the next thing makes it very expensive because you need to steam it at 105 degrees Celsius at least with pressure. You need to wash it 2, 3, 4 times. So there's a lot of water waste. That water needs to be cleaned and recycled. That is energy costs. So all these energy costs in the low times of low energy, it wasn't a big problem. It kind of matched. Volume compared to the cost was very close to each other. Now, really, the price of energy has gone up, where the margin is still there. And so you're starting to lose money. And this is where Dicep comes in, where you don't need to wash, where you don't need to steam, where it goes through a calendar. Yes, it's electrified. Yes, it's heat, but it's a lot less energy consumption. And the result is a cheaper product, or sorry, a more affordable product.
Fantastic. And Ellen, it would be great to get your take on that as well. So in terms of the maybe if we go back to what I said initially in terms of the future markets, if we're looking at soft signage and we're looking at fashion and decor, and also, from an ink perspective, I guess with something like fashion, you really need that reliability from the ink, and you need to be, how do you go about, looking into that formulation with consistency in mind as well?
Yeah, well, I think there are things that will become easier for fashion and things that will become more difficult. As you said, you need a lot of reliability. On the other hand side, for soft sign, you need very poppy colors, you need high densities, where to my opinion, for fashion, for example, it will be less. So it's finding a different balance in the formulations, I would say. I was going to say something else and I forgot. So regarding reliability and ink production, I think Agfa is an old company, and okay, we are changing. We're a company that is still a bit on the move, but we also learned a lot of lessons from the past. Meaning, how do we need to produce something, and how do we need to guarantee quality and reproducibility? That's a process that we'll keep on following for every product development that we're doing, also for digital inks. So we'll make sure we have consistent raw materials, consistent production of the inks, so we can keep on being one of the high quality suppliers, I would say. Yep.
Absolutely. And Mike, I'm sure you agree with that.
Absolutely. I mean, it is the right way, where we need to go. I think that fashion has another benefit that Ellen kind of forgets, and sometimes, and it's logical. It is easier to print. If you take a sportswear shirt, you need a solid red with blue stripe, or a solid white on one side and blue on the other side. So it's very heavy contrasting coloring. Where if you go to fashion, I probably have a sample hanging here around in my office somewhere, but they're little flowers, and then or there's a pattern. It's reasonably simple. If something goes wrong, you won't see it, or you can cut out that part, in your cutout. And the sportswear shirt, you cannot cut out, the place where the heart was because it didn't look good. It's the shirt is gone. So the reliability of the ink, the reliability of the printer, the reliability of the whole process is where also for sportswear it becomes extremely important. And we have water-based inks, we have water-based printers also in the bigger segment. If you look at interior jet, for example, our flooring product is purely water-based printer, industrial high-end production printer. This printer could we haven't tested it, but we could work it with Dicep inks, for example. That will give us a totally different approach to textiles, because then you start talking about the industrialization of these products that were made for industry to go into the textile industry, and say, listen, with one printer, it can print 24/7. And you don't have to worry. You can fill ink while printing. It has jumbo rolls, for 1,250 kilos. It has all that already on board. We've done all that development. Our interior jet has that product, is printing flooring and surfaces on a day-to-day basis around the world. It would be a logical next step when we look at where textile needs to go. And what I mean, not with an Agfa printer, but I mean with the logical of going industrial, where the operator is now controlling 3 or 4 devices, and that's it. Now there's operators around. Excuse me. So we need to make sure that the industrialization process of dye sublimation or textile printing is going to be something which is going to be sustainable, reliable, and affordable. And I think Agfa has that in mind.
Absolutely. And I think if it'd be a good time to talk about, if you can shed any light on that shift from analog to digital. I know we talked about impact of COVID, impact of, now we're facing kind of an energy crisis as well, certainly in Europe. Can you give us some thoughts on the future trajectory of that?
I think that the generalization of textiles will be more digital. A lot of people kind of forget still that only 6, maybe 7% of all the textile are printed digital. You start to realize, that if you look in your closet and you look at your garments, probably 60% of your garments are one color, which is blue or black or red or whatever, but they're dip dye. They go through a bath and there's no printing involved at all. That's a very big part. Then there's a very big part rotary screen where, masses of fashion is being printed. So only 6% is what we see with the PIRA reports and other reports are printed digital. So the growth of that is huge. When you look at the total addressable market for digital textiles, you're talking $1.3 billion on revenue per year. We're not there yet. I mean, we're not even touching it close. So the market is huge, but the market has not been able to really expand because of the necessity of having industrial machines to go into that market. When you're always, bouncing back and forth for the smaller printers, you cannot go industrial. You need to really go industrial. A lot of these people don't have the money to go industrial. That's also the difference. When you're talking the device which will cost you 25,000 euros, or you're talking about a device that's costing you 750,000 euros. It's a big difference, and people make the calculation and they say, well, I can buy so many printers and it's a lot cheaper if I buy 20 small ones and put them in a hall. What they forget is you need a hall. You need to acclimatize that hall. You need the operators to run it. You need the spare parts for those machines. You need the technicians. You need the energy consumption. You need. When there's only one printing doing the same, you just add a second printer and you have doubled your capacity into industrial side. So that's where I think there is a huge trend to the future where people are going to look at it. I mean, one of the things I can envision, and I'm not saying it's coming, but I can envision is a unique soft side machine for industrial where you are rolling multiple huge rolls for production. It makes sense, but it also needs to be educated, because one of the things that immediately everybody will tell me in the sports world, yeah, but I mean, that means I have to wait for the whole roll to be printed before I can get this first set that I needed to sublimate because that needed to go out fast. I understand that, but that's because they're used to the smaller rolls and picking up and going. Now you print overnight and you print 5,000 linear meters and you go through the calendar process and it's done the next day, but you're doing a little bit more. This is where the change in the future needs to be, but it's an educational process. And I mean, the last 20 years, people have been doing it with small printers and small rolls and 30, 50, 60, 100 meters, 200 meters, my God, 200 meter roll. Yeah, we're now talking 5,000. And if you go to 30 grams fashion, you're talking 10, 12,000 linear meter rolls. It's a different story. It becomes industrial, and some people love it and some people are scared of it. And I think that being scared is probably the biggest, stopper for innovation.
Yeah.
My God, there's a car. Let's walk with a big red flag in front of it because maybe my horses will get scared. It's the same thing.
And Ellen, would you agree with what Mike's saying there?
Yeah, I think so. Of course, or okay, I'm not the specialist in the markets. Of course, we're addressing that's Mike, but to my opinion, soft sign it's still a bit different from fashion or interior decoration or the other markets, of course. But that's my view. Of course, industrialization is the next step. But if you look at the way we did already, coming from the slower engines with 5 square meters an hour, 10 square meters an hour, up to where we are now, 150 square meters. Competitors even go faster, honestly speaking. Yeah, we already made a big step, but I think we are in a conventional industry in textiles. So it's what Mike says, it's about educating people, giving the pros and making sure that it's visible. Why not having 10 small engines, but why having better 1 or maybe 2 faster engines? It's up to us.
And I just want to reiterate, we've only got a few minutes left, so there is still the Q&A function there. If you do have a tricky question for Michael, Ellen, that you want to pop in there, now's the time to do it. We've kind of already touched on this, but I do want to make sure that we talk about it again in terms of the the sustainability value proposition really of Dysub in general, and maybe more specifically, I come to you, Ellen, on the ink side. But first of all, Mike, in terms of what is that value proposition in terms of Dysub and sustainability, and more specifically on the Avinci side as well? If people were looking at getting into that market, sustainability is going to be key to everybody's customers. Maybe you could just talk us through that.
I think we need to define sustainability first. And I'm sorry, because sustainability is such a broad aspect to everything.
Yeah.
I think if you look at our inks, they're sustainable, but what is sustainable on those inks is that we try to make them CMR free. We try to make them as ecological as possible, and to make sure that we don't harm the environment. When we design printers, we want to make sure printers are made to last. They don't break down in a short period of time, so that those printers can be reused or refurbished in the future. We make our printer ink combinations in such a way that there's no misting or very little misting around those printers, so it's healthier for the operators to work in. The environment where our printers are as clean as possible. And I'm saying as clean as possible because there's always something, but in general, we're clean and we try to be as clean as possible. We try to look at that, point of sustainability. We can do more. We can do more, and we should do more. And we're looking into other things in the future to make it more sustainable. I think cradle to cradle is a big example that we should look more into. When you buy a printer and in 5 years you've written off, you want to get rid of it, call Agfa, we'll pick up the printer again. Those kind of things. That's where we need to go. Do we have that today? No, but it should be. We should go that direction. Because I think it's important for us as a manufacturer to take a responsibility on the sustainability side, not only scream out that we're green and that we have great inks and that we have, all these ecological certificates on our inks, and that our printers are, they less energy consumption than the rest, blah, 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 blah. I think it's part, but we need to look at it. Another thing that people forget at sustainability is the people themselves, inclusivity, diversification, diversity of people. All that is, in my opinion, also sustainability. It's more than it's everything. It's our environment. It's where one of the things that I always say is, Agfa is a community, but we live in a community, and because we live in that community, we're part of that community. And that means we have to take our responsibility. I mean, Agfa is located, if anybody's been at Mortsel, please, you're welcome to come to Mortsel in Antwerp. We live in the middle of the town, huh? When we started building our factories, it was outside of Antwerp. Today, when I walk out of my office, I am in the neighborhood. I am literally in the neighborhood. It's not there's a field or 500 meters. No, it is there. I have to reckon with those people. I mean, I have to look at every day, every morning, I have to look them straight in my face and say, we, Agfa, try our best to make a clean environment for you to live in. I could not sleep if we didn't do that. We have to.
Absolutely. Ellen?
Yeah, it's a cradle to grave story, as Mike said. It's from the raw materials. I think we should look into responsible raw materials, not only towards the environment, but also towards people working for our suppliers. It's about the ink, it's about the engine. Energy consumption, as Mike said, it's a big one. Huh? We can do it by making sure we can put more ink. We need less energy for drying, but also by optimizing the dryer system of our engine, for example. It's also an important one. Of course, also the people, the operators, the end customers. And then the question is, if we go more towards the grave, we can take back our engines, maybe indeed. But what about the prints? Because especially soft sign, but also fashion, it's not lasting a life. If people are not using it for a lifetime long. So should we take it back? Can we recycle? I think I can say there already, yes, we know we can recycle. But also there, we can still think about more initiatives in the future, for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's great. And I think we're only got a couple of minutes left, but I will ask if there is any future insight into Agfa's continued dye sublimation journey. Cheeky question for you, maybe if I let you answer, Ellen, and then Mike can weigh in, or if you want to, leave it to Mike to answer. Want to wriggle out of it, that's fine too.
Okay.
I'll take it, Ellen, don't worry. I think Agfa is here to stay. That's one. We developed this ink in the last couple of years to come up with the proposition to have a better solution for the textile industry.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because we're a stock noted company, I'm not really allowed to give you any forward outlook or forward-looking statements, but I can tell you we're here to stay. We're also here to grow.
Mm-hmm.
If you put that 1 + 1, it's going to be a 3. And we are in that direction. Agfa is a company that when we invest in something, we invest in it with a lot of care, a lot of research, and we go to a direction to say, okay, we're going to do these investments. In an ink investment like we've done for dye sublimation, outside of the years of labor and the many people that are there and the thousands of trials and tests and things that have done, outside of that, to go that direction, you're talking maybe 4.5 million euros worth of investment to get that formulation perfect. That's not an easy step to make. So when you're making a step like that, you are seriously considering to continue to be in that market. I think that is an honest and as good as response I can give you within the constraints that I'm in. On the other hand, we also know that dye sublimation is a market that is growing.
Yeah,
growing tremendously, between 16 and 18% CARC per year, which is an amazing feat. Because even though it's still the 6% I was talking about, but if we go to 7%, we're talking $300 million growth in supplies.
mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but even Agfa cannot make 300 million worth of ink. We just don't have the capacity. So there is a growth potential for the market. There is a growth potential for the customers going there today. Yes, we've had difficult times, but I think we have some really glorious sunshine in front of us where we can really grow the business, grow the market, but do it with a reliable partner. I mean, I think that's the most important. And again, we have Agfa, but there's other manufacturers that are as reliable or very close reliable to us. But make sure you buy what you need. Don't buy something because you want to get into the industry. Get yourself informed. And I think that's what FuturePrint brings us as Agfa. You know, this possibility to explain a little bit of our background and where we come from, where we want to go with a customer, because it is a 360 customer journey today. It's not, you know, we make something, this is good for you, you buy it. No, you buy it. No, we've listened to the customer, we've listened to where the problem is, we've looked at it, we've solved, you know, some of these things with our R&D development and research, and putting all that together makes Agfa, I think, a reliable partner for your textile solution.
Okay, fantastic. So watch this space and keep an eye on all the exciting things that you guys are doing. And I think that takes us just out of time. So I think that's it. But thank you so much to Ellen and Mike and Agfa, of course, for giving us such a great overview there of your dye sub offering and that insight into the market as well. I think we are
we have one more question, I think, just popped up.
Yep.
I'll do a fast one. If somebody has no experience with, once again, the textile business, who will support the whole process? We do, Agfa. We're working on even going to the calendar, which calendar you should buy and where you should buy. So we will do that, you know, together as much as possible. Do you want to go to trade shows? I think the most important trade show you want to go, if you don't want to go today, is FESPA in Europe and ITMA in Milan. ITMA is every 4 years. It is the textile show. It's the International Textile Machinery Association, ITMA, which organizes this. You'll be shocked to see what kind of machinery is there. So for that one, I think it's going to be absolutely a possibility to do that. Anything you want to know specifically, and I know we're out of time, drop me a note in LinkedIn or just write to me or to Karis or to FuturePrint, and we'll get back to you and help you on the journey we're there for.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, as Mike said there, do connect on LinkedIn and follow up. And if you can think of anyone that would benefit from some of the info that we've talked about, please do share the replay when we share that with you as well. So thank you again to both of you for being here.
Our pleasure. Thank you, Karis.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. And thank you to everybody who's watched along with us, and have a great day and talk to you soon.